Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh everyone, and Maulana especially. Jazakallah to everyone for joining tonight's session. Maulana, I'm handing over directly to you, inshallah khair.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وبعد ويقول الله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير ويقول رسول صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم كلكم بني آدم وآدم من طين صدقت يا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ويقول الله سبحانه وتعالى بشأن حبيب الكريم مخبرا وآمرا قولا كريما إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم
Allahumma
صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد معدن الجود والكرم وآله الكرام وبارك وسلم صلاة وسلاما عليك يا سيدي يا حبيبي يا رسول الله وعلى آلك وأصحابك رحمة للعالمين. All praise be to Allah, cherish and sustain of the worlds, and choicest blessings and salutations upon the Holy Prophet. Nabiyyuna Habibuna Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa
sallallahu
sallam.
alayhi wa sallam.
Once more, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I have been requested or given the broad theme of racism. And of course, it's something that perhaps we can have a series of it, but we will try to. I think we had a question some time ago, long time ago, just at the beginning of our sessions when we were just a handful. And maybe it's not a bad idea to sometimes repeat certain themes because it's actually the sunnah of the Quran. Sunnah means the way of the Quran. It is the habit of the Quran. It is the methodology of the Quran to also repeat certain key ideas, key definitions, key actions. Uh, One day we will probably have to do a little topic on the statistical analysis of the Quran. Uh, how many times does the word Samir appear in the Quran? I'm not sure. How many times the word man and woman appear? How many times the word somebody can guess? How many times does the word month appear in the Quran? Samir, you want to um, answer on behalf of people because I see we don't get enough questions in the question time.
Yeah, I think Maulana, we can just remind everybody this is an open session, free session.
Absolutely.
Please,
Mm.
everybody is in a position to say or answer whatever Maulana is requesting or questioning as well.
No,
Please
absolutely.
participate. Please participate, inshallah.
Worst scenario, if I don't know, Mufti Samir will tell you people.
Astaghfirullah.
No. Yeah, no, it's good. We need little, but I'm speaking to you from Ladysmith, mashallah. We're at my wife's cousin's place here. A lovely view of the Drakensberg from here, though, but in the distance, and it's blanketed with snow. And as you can see, I'm ready to do a hiking tomorrow, inshallah. Uh,
MashaAllah.
uh, Although I don't think I'll be going. After Fajr, I hope to leave for Pretoria, inshallah. I'll come when it's warmer. I don't think we old people can manage the cold. So welcome from a cold, crisp Ladysmith, and look at the karamat and the miracle of media that so the only excuse I could offer is to say, it's load shedding or I got no data. Because the other day too, when I said there was load shedding, I realized, and I wasn't on, somebody else was on. I realized when Sheikh Ali was on, I realized that I had data. I could still do it on the phone, maybe not on the laptop per se, because the battery was low and so forth. So this electronic media has given us fewer and fewer excuses to opt out of responsibilities. But inshallah, Allah give us all hidayat tawfiq. All participants, whether we present or whether we are the recipients or the listeners, I think we must, give off a little of our time. And that's why it was just made for 30 minutes. I thought that little motivation was good. So I recited the verse of the Quran and a hadith to immediately anchor our little program, to say, whenever we think, as much as we are compartmentalized or compromised rather, in terms of Western industrial thinking, because that's our education in South Africa, essentially. And notwithstanding, we try our best to bring in our Islamic ethos in our lives. And I think there's a great amount of success. And there's always this tension between, and I call it a healthy tension. Some people say it's an unhealthy tension. I think it's a healthy tension, the Western industrial modus of thinking, and then our Islamic Quran and Hadith based thinking, because those are our sources, absolutely, unapologetically. And the more we understand it and the more we dive into the ocean of the Quran and to the rivers of the prophetic wisdom, we will come up and understand that the most modern, up to date, balanced quality and way of belief and action, or the way of thinking and living, is Islam. Inna dina inda Allah al-Islam. Veritably, by Allah, the only system of thought and practice is al-Islam. And of course, al-Islam is from Adam alayhi salam's time. There can be arguments about how, because of our prejudices or lack of deeper understanding, create definitions which we think is Islamic and are not Islamic. And that is why, even in today's talk, we always go back to the sources. It's not the Quran's fault or the Prophet's life's fault if we don't understand. It is the brevity and the limitations of our own thinking and our own levels of understanding that we become prejudicial. And of course, enemies of Islam, without even going to Islam or going to the sources and studying independently as sincere students of truth. If you're a student of truth, you will find it even by a mere recitation, reading of the Quran, even if it's just its translation. So therefore, that's our methodology. And our methodology never fails us. You ask any question to the Quran, you will find its answer, because the Quran itself says, Tibyanan li kulli shay. I am the exhaustive discussion of everything. But obviously, if you're standing on the bank and you want to know what is the temperature of the water, whether it's a river or a lake or a sea or a swimming pool, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know. So you're standing on the bank and you're describing it, you're having adjectives, you analyze, you do everything. But not until you get into it or take a sample of the water and analyze it, you won't know the temperature, like at the sea, the strength of the waves or whatever it is. So the experiential reality is equally important. And therefore, the Quran, the more you recite the Quran, the more you sit with the Quran, the more the Quran will give you. And I would strongly suggest to all of us here that the daily recitation of the Quran, and if you have time, although I'll try to emphasize that, is to read and look at the translation at least. And of course, if you've got more time and interest, then look at the tafsir, that means the commentary. We may not grasp everything, but there's definitively value. And of course, as a personal spiritual regimen, that's the point that I want to also make, that we should have a personal spiritual regimen. Each person must have. Of course, it starts, Allah gives us an obligatory, He gives us a fard spiritual regimen with the 5 salahs. And then everything else feeds off from the 5 salahs. And that's why many a time your spiritual masters or your teachers will tell you, recite Tasbih Fatima, Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, after salah. Recite Ya Basitu after salah. Recite this, recite that, etc. Or recite in the morning and recite in the evening. The whole idea is that, and each one should prescribe themselves, because there is no priesthood and there's no class struggle in Islam in terms of spirituality, and of course we can have another debate about that and how people have used that to make distinctions, and that's precisely today's theme. So the Quran is very clear. We've recited it. Let me just go back to it. It says, "O you who believe, ya ayyuhan nasu," actually, "O humankind." So the Quran also has its unique ways of speaking and addressing. And here it's not only addressing Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu or Qul ya ayyuhal kafirun or the disbelievers, or for that matter any of the prophets. Here it is in addressing us in all of our essence. Ya ayyuhan nas, O humankind. Yeah, once upon a time we would say, "O mankind," and we did not mean by that any patriarchal definition. We didn't mean that, well, woman is nothing. But man, woman is part of man. He is from the curved rib. He's at the most. She is at the most, delicate of places. You know, near the heart, etc., etc., etc. Again, we can talk about that some other time because I already see some of the ladies are up in arms there. So, Ya ayyuhan nasu, O humankind, nas. Huzur Mufti Azamin radiallahu anhu, Ibn Ala Hazrat, who himself was a accomplished friend of Allah, alim, faqih, and of course a very disciplined, spiritual master. Whatever he spoke, not like us. We preach, we advise, but many a time we don't do it ourselves. He would say one thing, He would say, what is wilayat? What is it become to Allah's friend? It is to become an insan, to become a human being, to become a person. He found that spirituality, the highest levels of spirituality, because you can have all the miracles and fly on a carpet or swim in the water and stay underwater for long, whatever. But fish do that, and a fly does the other one. So there's no great achievement in flying on a magic carpet. The miracle, my sheikh in the Quran, he is announcing the Quranic view of that the perfect man is the one who has achieved a balanced humanity. And that is why racism is anathema to Quranic thinking. And unfortunately, all of us have experienced, are experiencing, and will experience either the receival of racial connotations and interactions, and we ourselves, as a South African community who lived through a great part of apartheid and racism from 1652 onwards, and only after 94, but we very much have a great residual, and we carry that racism, and we perhaps will talk about it if there is enough time. If not, we will revert it to another. So the Quran is quite emphatic. Khalas. O humankind, already there is the leveling of the playgrounds, not oh rich, oh poor, oh knowledgeable, oh non-knowledgeable, oh this, oh that, oh that, because the subject matter is such that we are going to one's essence, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But it says, Ya ayyuhan nasu, O humankind, Inna is used to emphasize. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna, we. So it means Allah, He is the creator, the Khaliq, but He's got a system of cause and effect through which He creates the cause, He creates the effect, He creates the product. He's the creator of everything. So in His wisdom, He creates and He makes man and women the agency of the procreative process, except for Adam alayhi salam, Isa alayhi salam, and so forth. But for the rest of ordinary humanity, who are sacred, the most sacred creation of Allah, the crown of Allah's creation, Ashraful Makhluqat, the most noblest of all of Allah's creation, is the human being, this great human being. Therefore, don't allow anybody to detract from your humanity, from the dignity of being a person, from the dignity of being the crown of Allah's creation. And Allah announces that and breaks all notions of racism or racialism. There's a slight nuanced difference in those two usages, and we'll talk about it shortly. So, veritably, definitely, inna, there's no doubt about it. Allah says, khalaqnakum, we, me and my system, my angels, my blowing into the womb of mothers at the 40 days, I think it is, and then thereafter, when the ruh is blown in, and of course, the feeling of that comes on later, I think at 20 weeks or something. The doctors will tell us on that. He says, veritably, definitely, we have created you, all of you insans, all. Min dhakarin wa untha. We have created you male, and we have created you female. Now, that in itself is a statement, and I don't want to start the discussion here about the new movement globally that is trying to make homosexuality, lesbianism, and any other orientation, quite normal and natural. By Quranic standards, it is unnatural. And before any of you think of a question that, no, but I mean, it's like that. From an Islamic point of view, it is not from nature. The people who behave contrary to fitra, contrary to one's humanity, and that's the point. That's why dhakar and untha has been mentioned first in this verse before we come to the nations and the tribes. We'll take up that again, perhaps in another one, in another talk, and we'll try to get a specialist on that to even look from a medical point of view and psychological point of view, philosophical point of view, the concepts and definitions of maleness and femaleness. In Islam, if there is deviance from it, it is not because of one's nature. You're not born with it. It comes as a result of environmental or deviant personalities, etc., etc. Allah protect and grant us the understanding and the practice of our maleness as males and femaleness as females, inshallah. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ, thereafter, after we have created you in male and female, and in an equality, in your elemental stage, in your state of origin, then we have created you شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلًا, in nations and in tribes, different colors, different eyes, different this, different that, tall, brown, black, clean, green, white, different eyes, different hair, etc., etc. Like some these days, everybody wants blue hair and blonde eyes. I've deliberately done an inversion there. You pick up the line from there. So شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلًا لِتَعَارَفُوا. Here's the key. So you look around, you say, but we're all different, and standards of beauty have been Eurocentric. So we all look at that. We don't look, what is the African concept of beauty? What is the Arab concept of beauty, perhaps? But then what is the Islamic concept of beauty? So we find that there is already a complex of inferiority and superiority created, and the Quran emphatically outlaws it. The Quran says lita'arafu. There's the key. The key is it is an identity. It is another identity only, to know each other, because if you know each other, you appreciate each other. The more you know Allah, the more you enjoy His worship. The more you know your Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the more you develop his akhlaq in you. The more you know your wives, your mothers, your brothers, your sisters, you learn to have deeper and deeper and deeper respect and value, and you sacralize those relationships. You make it sacred. So the differences is not to differentiate. It's not to discriminate. It's not to be racist. It is simply an added definition, an added identity. I don't want to now talk about Liverpool identity and Real Madrid identity. Half of the people will stop this class here now, I'm sure. But even that, it's a sense of belonging you have to a useless game. On the one hand, yes, I played soccer in my days, and I still know a few tricks, but it's a superficial identity in one sense, but still it gives you a sense of belonging. There's a bit of a, you feel proud, or you feel happy, or you feel sad. And I mean, that is on such a fleeting situation, whereas Allah is talking about, who you are, where your origin are from which village you came, from which family, etc. But these must not be used to discriminate. That's the point. The foundational principle of the Quran, in terms of our being in our original creation as human beings, we are absolutely equal. Not even the prophets claimed otherwise. Yes, Allah raised some of us, um, and the Quran says nations and individuals have been raised one upon the other. Some have been given certain gifts, others have been given others. But when it comes to one's essence, then Allah says, before you take the tribes and nations and families and ethnicities as a standard to make one superior over the other, which is haram, haram, haram. The Quran says that the proper concept of this difference is, and if you want to differentiate, if you want to be prejudiced, if you want to discriminate, yes, you can, because it's in our nature to discriminate. But then discriminatory levels have to be in this verse. It says, Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. You want to be first class, you want to be second class, you want to be top class, you want to be a high society, good. But the measure of that is, those will be first class people who are more closer to Allah, who are more conscious of Allah, who have the taqwa of Allah. So the only way to make yourself high society, first citizen, jump in the first class, get first class treatment, go to the first class lounge, go to the first class seats, by Allah, those first class positions is only for those who are closer to Allah. And therefore, you yourself will agree, who are the first class people? The Anbiya. Who are the next class of people? Their companions. Who are the next class of their companions, etc., etc., etc. Somewhere along the line, our counting is also there. But we can actually bypass all of that and become better than angels. Because if our angelic side is developed, where we are non-racist, where we are intrinsically good people, where we are not jealous of other people's progress, where we share what we have, where we value our neighbor, even if he's a non-Muslim, even if he's a troublesome fellow, there's an opportunity for da'wah, not to further make the gulf. And then they also understand that, what? Muslims are racist. Because unfortunately, the majority population, who are the Africans of this country, do feels that Muslims, and for that matter, so-called Indian Muslims, are racist. And of course, I think none of us will be so foolish enough to discount that perception. Yes, a lot is being done to reverse the perception, but perceptions that have been there for 350 years, that the media, that your education system, your white, Eurocentric, Africanist, Calvinist, nationalist education system has planted. A decade ago, our fathers, our grandfathers used derogatory terms for the people that worked for us, especially. They did it to our own people, who even their own family members, but they also did it to the African person who needed to be restituted. So, inna akramakum indal atqakum, the best of you by Allah are those who are most close to Allah. You want to discriminate? Well, look for the Anbiya. The Anbiya is superior to us. Look for the ashab, their companions. They are superior to us. Look for the awliya karam. They are. So I just come from Durban. Hazrat Sufi Sahib rahmatullah, Hazrat Sayyid Ahmad Bashapir radiallahu anh. These people are clearly superior than us. I'll kiss their hands and their feet if I had the opportunity. They're superior to me. It's simple, you know. Similarly, your mother and father are superior to you in the positions that they are, in the fact that they gave birth to you. So they may not be muttaqi and parezgar and pious and wali, but because of the natal relationship, you can't say uff to your mother and father. You just cannot. It's as simple as that. The Quran is emphatic. There's no legitimation. Even if your parents were kafir, you can't say, they're kafir. These are drunkard. To hell with him. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. You still have to show your akhlaq, and through your akhlaq, it becomes a da'wah so that you can see the change in them. But again, that's a topic for another time. But just to show you how we may not be racist in that way, but we are intolerant, and that is one of the longer definitions of the word racism. Of course, the Prophet ﷺ says, "Kullukum bani Adam." All of you are the children of Adam alayhi salam. Never mind who you are. The presidents of countries, the robbers, the crook, every human being, good or bad, Muslim or not, are the children of Adam. Wa Adamu min tin. Adam was created from clay. So in our essence, we just cannot come to a superiority position, as I said, except by taqwa. But let's just go back quickly. Racism, I want to read out a definition of racism so that you can understand. If you are guilty of any of this today's talk must transform immediately, forthwith, your perception. Your mind must change now, this minute. There's no process. I'm going to change. I'm going to do this. No. That's immediate. You accept that all human beings are equal, and from this minute onwards, you treat them. Now, within our societies, of course, if you look at the Muslim societies, let's take, I come from Pretoria, or I lived in Durban, I've lived in Cape Town. Let's just take local, the South African context. And in the Muslims, you have Indian Muslims, you have African Muslims, you have a small minority, so-called European white Muslims, you have Malay Muslims. I think we're more or less covered, right? Now, all of us will agree, if not us, then our fathers or their fathers had this, that, the Indian Muslim is superior. Then within the Indian ethnic class group, you have Memon, Cockney, Surti, this, that. Now that comes from your Aryan concepts. Like in India, up till today, the Brahmin is considered superior. Finnish is the priestly class. The Achut means untouchable. It is so bad in Indian culture, in Hindu Indian culture, that if the more fundamentalist of the Hindus, as is now, who are the ruling country, ruling political party there, some of them, or a good amount of them, if an untouchable Hindu, leave alone Muslim, is still too far away, passes and the shadow falls on you or on your thing, it becomes like contaminated. It's like how our things get contaminated with pork. If it was a utensil or a thing, or alcohol is drunk, or things like that, it is make you napak, as we say, najis. And of course, najis akbar, that means a great uncleanliness would be pork, for example. The others, urine, alcohol, you can wash it off. Pork has to be cleaned 7 times, and 1 time, of course, with sand or something that can take it, render it pure. So in racism and racialism, slight difficulty, because racism is institutionalized, making somebody feel lower than you. That means you feel superior, and you make the other person feel inferior. So now somebody marries African, somebody marries uh, uh, Malay, even if those Malay up. I mean, I was there 25 years. I can tell you that the Indians did have a very unhealthy, and yet the intermarrying, this, that, standing next to each other in the mosque, etc. But when they leave, they actually used to use derogatory terms. If I recall, the Malays used to call the Indians babi, which is a derogatory term from Malaysian language, and the Indians used to call them Heinchi Mansa in Cockney, Heinchi Mansa, like derogatory, and yet Heinchi Mansa actually means the original people, the people from here. Uh, and also they used another word, Mapla, I think. Maybe that's more in Gauteng or wherever. Now, these are absolutely racist. There's no place for it in Islam. And whenever we hear it, in fact, in the New South Africa, it has been outlawed. Simple. People worry about what was your origin. You mixed race, you this, you that. I'd like to see whose genetic code is pure. I don't think there's any pure lineages per se, except if you are a Sayyid and that you can link yourself immediately without any gap to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam via Bibi Fatima and Sayyidina Ali. But even then too, the Prophet himself has said in humanity we are all one. We cannot discriminate on the basis of even genetics, because you will find the more deeper you go into the meta-molecular structure of the human being, you'll find the sameness and the sameness and the sameness, even in the DNA material. So those who feel they want to be pure, I mean, clearly, I know a family that only wanted Indian son-in-laws, a lot of girls there. There's not a single Indian in that family. They've got all sorts, licorice, all sorts. I think perhaps those people that got discriminatory and racist problems, I think let's start there. Let's prescribe that they must buy halal, all sorts. You know what that beacons or what, I don't know which one it is, all sorts. Then you'll see they're different colors, but they all got sugar. You see, so you a little bit change there. You eat the licorice is different. You eat that one little different. That one, that one, that one, that one. I think that should be the greatest snack for South Africans actually, because racism is well and alive. The cricket team, the rugby team, the multinational companies, the mines everywhere. That is, it's still very much there. They're only coming across. The European mind is extremely crafty. This is not racism, and maybe it's a bit of a generalization. But when I say the European mind, I mean that mind that has accepted the Eurocentric notion of the world, which is very much still today, that Europe is civilized and it's taking its civilization to the rest of the world. It's their duty. In fact, they used to call it in the early days, it is the burden of the white man. And we must enculture and civilize the African continent. It's the dark continent, for example. Little did they know that manuscripts were written on science in the center of the Sahara Desert. But because, you see, they were ignorant of it, they were ignorant. They were ignorant. But unfortunately, of course, they ruled for hundreds and hundreds of years, and now they rule by remote control. Pakistan is a brilliant example how they wanted regime change and got it right. But that's the problem, you see, because most Muslim countries and most Muslims have subscribed and are prescribed to by the racist political systems that undermine communities globally, until we do not go back to Quran and Sunnah. So racism means prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism even by an individual or a community or even an institution against a person or people on the basis of their membership of a particular racial or ethnic group. Typically one that is a minority or that is marginalized. I'm happy they said minority and marginalized, because in South Africa, the Africans are the majority, 90%, but they've been systematically marginalized, that even today they are suffering from the effects of imperialist, colonialist, and now human liberalist Eurocentric definitions of the human being. And unfortunately, because a group of them have turned to looting the country, Now the white supremacists say, you see, we could run it better. You see, these people can't manage it. You see, it's because they are African. It's because they haven't got intellect. It's because they have not developed. Obviously, the greed is there, and that is a human quality. It's not a African quality. It's not a Chinese, not an Indian quality. It's a human quality. The very people that are the Afrikaner nationalists or the Europeans or the Jewish cabal monopolists in the world, all of them have read the same. And then quickly, racialism is the belief. One is to have that definition of racism, but to have it as a belief like Zionist Judaism, where the Palestinian, the Arab is worthy of not existing. He must be killed. He must be murdered. He must be removed. Nothing is sacred of him, not him, not his land, not his house. And of course, it is unfolding right in front of our eyes. If you want the perfect and most perfect after the South African apartheid system, then the present Israeli government, what they are doing to the Israel, is the best definition of racism and racialism. The belief that different races possess distinct characteristics, abilities, or qualities, especially so as to distinguish them as inferior or superior. So inferior, those that want to be superior, they make them inferior. And the danger is, the funny, strange thing is that the inferior has, in many cases, accepted the label that was given and quietly went for hundreds of years without challenging. Of course, groups have challenged. Like the chosen race, that's totally, Afrikaners are superior. They are the chosen God's people in Africa. For Pretoria people, the Voortrekker Monument is a perfect example of the celebration of being God's chosen people. They put it up there to say God had given them victory over the African uncivilized people, and they put up this monument, etc., etc. So, it is so fundamentally rooted in religion that it will take lots of time. The only leveling system will be Islam. But sadly, even Muslims, even we on this chat group and our families, still to a large extent have got residual racism and racialism. And we must make tawbah, we must reread our shahada, and we must restitute those that we think in whichever way, first in the mind. So first of all, treat everybody as a human being, and then take it from there. Shukran. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakat. We may want to take a question or two, but I think we've overstayed our welcome. Samir?
Jazakallah Maulana. If there's anyone who wants to ask a question, can do so, or else we can post it on WhatsApp or via email, inshallah. Maulana, Jazakallah to you for your time, and Jazakallah to everyone for their time as well. Shukran jazilan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.